Hi, Tam here. Now, a lot of nurses are asking me questions about cruise ships, and one particular comment stated that, look, why nurses are not talking about their experience on cruise ships? And I've been asked on many occasions to talk about the nursing experience on cruise ships. Bearing in mind, I'm not a nurse, I'm a doctor, but I will attempt to answer some of those questions, all right? So somebody asked me about accommodation. How is accommodation for nurses? I'd say accommodation is acceptable. It's one room, it's a single room, it's comfortable on most ships. A nurse will never share his or her cabin with somebody else. And then quality of life. Nurses are officers. They wear a white uniform and they have 2 stripes. So they are officers and they have all officers' privileges, meaning they can go to all the guest areas of the ship, all the restaurants of the ships, all the bars of the ship. They can walk around anywhere they want on the ship. They're officers. This is to say that as an officer, you're in the top 10% of the crew members, and so you have nice privileges. Single cabin, guest privileges, gym, spa, stuff like that, right? Another question was, what's the quality of life at work for nurses on cruise ships? Well, the quality of life of nurses while at work on cruise ships is directly proportional to their relationship with the doctors. Personally, I was always super cool with the nurses, right? It was always a pleasure. We were friends, we were working together, we would eat together sometimes. Sometimes we'll go on excursions together, like in Alaska, in Hawaii, in different parts of the world. It was always great. So, yes, the quality of life of nurses at work is proportional to their relationship with the doctors. The majority of doctors are cool, but the reality is that some doctors are just very negative. And if you're unfortunate enough to end up on a ship with a doctor that's just not too good, then you're not going to be very happy. The good thing is most ships have 2 doctors. So if you have a problem with the one doctor, you can always refer to the second doctor and then discuss this with that doctor, right? Look, the problem sometimes comes from the fact that, you've got nurses that are very competent, lots of experience, say 10 years of ICU experience or ER experience, emergency experience. And then they're working with a doctor who's got just 2 years of medical experience. And that's something you're going to see at Carnival Cruise Lines. They would hire a doctor that's got minimal experience, and then the nurse will have to guide the doctor towards proper protocols and treatment and stuff like that. I've seen cases where the doctor made a mistake, the nurse picked up on the mistake, and politely and discreetly indicate to the doctor that maybe we should do things this way, and then the doctor got upset because you might be unfortunate enough to be working with a doctor who sees himself up here as a doctor and you, the nurse, down here. And that's just a disastrous relationship. Doctors and nurses have to work like this, not like that. Not like this, because there must be a doctor and there must be a nurse, but like this, together. And you know, some doctors don't understand that. And then you have some nurses who don't understand that as well, you know? Like I said, me, when I was on cruise ships, as the senior doctor, you know, I was always very relaxed and making everybody comfortable, you know, making the nurses comfortable, you know, making the second doctor comfortable, and you know, making the whole environment conducive to, you know, having fun and, you know, working hard. But it was always, you know, yeah, we're working hard, we're doing the very best we can for all our patients, but we're also having fun. But if the nurse would make a mistake, and if there was a competency problem, or an obvious lack of knowledge or skills, then I would be, yeah, then I'd be severe. And I would give that nurse a warning. I'm talking about gross negligence here, you know. There we would have a serious problem. All right, but all in all, you know, so that's the situation, you know. So look, if the nurse she or he knows the stuff, competent, very good to work with, good experience, and the doctor is good as well, competent, and they are both humble, it could be a beautiful relationship, and usually, you know, on most ships that's the case, and that's great. Now, something very important for me, for both doctors and nurses, is courtesy. Courtesy and politeness. That's very important. It's not enough to be competent. It's not enough to be great. It's not enough to have a solid experience. But one must also be courteous and polite to all the patients, passengers and crew. Of course, some crew, some passengers would just be rude, obnoxious, and you know, yes, then you have to put them in their place. But overall, man, you know, just because you're a little bit tired, just because you had a long day yesterday, or you know, we had an emergency last night and everybody's a bit tired, that's no excuse for being rude to patients. Some nurses could not understand that and were just rude to almost every patient. And that is something that personally I don't tolerate. I did not tolerate it on cruise ships, and I don't tolerate it now in hospital. If you're going to be rude to patients for no reasons, we're going to have a big problem. But I would say that, you know, all in all, for the 7 years that I worked on cruise ships, and the many nurses I worked with, I found only 2 nurses that were just impossible to work with. But these are nurses that couldn't work with anybody. One in 2012, when I was working out of a ship that was in New York. It was a female nurse in her 50s, and the other one in 2015. So, you know, that tells you that, you know, my experience overall has been wonderful with the nurses on cruise ships. And most nurses, well, I can't speak for the nurses really, but I think, yeah, you know, most nurses, I would like to think have had a positive experience working with most doctors. Now, I have seen situations where the doctor coming on board is married to one of the nurses working. Usually that creates tension in the medical team, especially if the said nurse is not really pulling her weight. Because then you have a situation where the other nurses are not feeling free to talk about how they feel, or about maybe the deficiencies of the nurse who is the wife of the doctor, because after all they live together. There's the question of favoritism and all that stuff. I would not recommend it, Alright, so that's all for now about nurses on cruise ships. If you have any questions, hit me up. And if you are a subscriber, I reply. Cheers.